Happy Thursday. Thanks so much for tuning in on Facebook or here in Zoom or checking the recording afterwards. I am Meg Weber and I teach entrepreneurship and innovation at Western Washington University. And we're delighted today to be joined by Musa, who has a wonderful story to be sharing with us. He is a consultant who works with clients on amazing topics related to shifting from ego-ism to Eco-ism. And helps us really frame up how to just move forward with innovation and community. So we are so excited to have you here today sharing with us in this lunch bite. So thank you, Musa. I'll kick it over to you.
Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you, Meg, for hosting me. I'm so excited to be here today. I have plenty stories to be sharing with you guys. But then maybe before I do that, how about maybe just we'll do a quick check-in, right? A short exercise that we're going to do on Mendy.com. And then from there, I'm going to explain the structure of this presentation. And then we'll go through the 5 questions. I'll try and answer all 5 properly, explaining the difference between ego-ism and eco-ism. And then at the end, we'll do a quick checkout. All right, so if maybe I could just go straight into screen share, and then our screen share, I'll just start with Mendy.com. All right, so for Mendy.com, we can use our mobile phones. The code, you're going to see the code. I'll just show you the code now. Let me just, yeah. The code is 1526 194. 1526 194. So you just go to Mendy.com, and then when you get there, just it says join presentation, and then you just type in that access code. It takes you to there. In that access code, there's 2 questions. The first question is the one that I would like us to start off with as our check-in, and then at the end, when we're doing our checkout, we'll use the same code, but then now answer the second question. The answers that you'll see showing up on the screen will be in the form of a word cloud, and it's sort of going to shape the discussion that we're going to have.
Could you give me that code one more time?
The code is 1524. Sorry, 1526 194. 1526 194. All right. Let me just. Okay. Can you see the screen that I'm showing right now? Okay. All right. So the question is, what are you expecting to learn about in today's lunch bite? What are your expectations? I know the title comes with a very big promise. 5 questions answered on how to shift from ego-ism to eco-ism. But I just want to get an idea. So right there, I'm seeing storytelling, ego-ism, cross-pollination, biomimicry, eco-ism. What else is coming up? Oh, okay, systems thinking, very nice. Eco anything, okay, right, okay. The biggest one that's coming out strongly in here is ego-ism. Okay. If there's anything else, just throw it in. Oh, I see there's somebody else joining us now. That's Art. Okay. Maybe let's give him a chance to participate in this as part of his check-in as well. Okay. Can we do that? All right. Art, hello. Oh, maybe his mic is off. Okay, just 1 minute. All right, just give me a chance of bit, and then we're going to see this word cloud shaping up very nicely, and it's going to give us a very nice graphic of what your expectations are, and maybe then that will help me to link up my discussion with what you're already expecting from there. Yeah. Okay, you ready?
Ready.
Yeah. Okay, so my request for the check-in was just go to your mobile phone and go to this website, menti.com, menti.com, and the access code is right there on the top of the screen, 1526194. That's the access code that you should use to log in. And in the first question that I'd like you to answer as part of our check-in is, what are you expecting to learn about in today's lunch bite? Okay, so so before we get started, I just want to get an alignment between what I'm going to talk about and what your expectations are. And in that link, you've got an opportunity to raise 3 points, just words, straightforward, to the point, and the answer will start auto-populating on the screen as part of a graphic that we'll see there. Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. There's some movement going on. Experience, right? That's one thing that's coming up. Vision, yeah. Okay. Eco-ism, right? So those are the three. So far, the biggest one is ego-ism. And then there's systems thinking, storytelling, cross-pollination, eco-ism, eco-anything, perspective, biomimicry, and experience. All right. Taking it straight into our conversation for tonight. So what's going to be happening, well, it's tonight for me here in South Africa, right? So what's going to be happening is I'll spend a lot of time throughout the presentation. I'm going to go into a lot of detail about ego-ism, and I'm going to link that to eco-ism and draw a line that helps you to shift or maybe to reframe some of the conversations that might be going on internally as an innovator or as an entrepreneur. Right? And then, but to carry all these messages that I'm going to be sharing, storytelling forms a very important aspect of this whole learning process, right? So the best way for me to teach or to share what I'm learning is through storytelling, right? I find it very, very effective. And in that, I'll be able to share my experiences. And of course, the whole idea of cross-pollination, as I have it in my book, in the title of my book, is the idea of biomimicry. In innovation, there's a lot of lessons that nature, in its 3.8 billion years of existence, has already perfected that us as human beings are only beginning to learn about just now. So we're very new into this. And nature has done a very good job for many years in getting it right. So one of the best things for us that we could do in innovation is to study nature, to observe what nature can teach us, and just commit ourselves to being students of nature. So that's the reason why I'm basing all of this on biomimicry. Right, so of course I'm going to give more details, and then at the end, I'm going to go back to these points that you guys have raised, and then say, what is it that stood out for you as the main points that made sense to you, and something that maybe you would want to start introducing in your own innovation exercises that you do. All right. Okay, let's go into the presentation itself. All right, let me, oh, okay, sorry. I went into something else, not the actual presentation that I've prepared for you guys. All right, there it is. Let me just make it I just want to make it a slideshow. Yeah, all right. Slideshow. Just hang on one second. Okay. As Meg introduced me earlier on, my name is Musa Nxumalo, and I'm the author of a book called I'm a Cross-Pollinator. So in my work as a coach and also as a facilitator, I focus on human-centered design. We do a lot of leadership capacity building. And then part of our work is about holistic transformation programs for individuals and also for organizations, big and small. So it could be SMEs, NGOs, or any other entity that's involved in social entrepreneurship, right? So that's basically the kind of work that we do. What you see on the left here is the cover of my book. And then, so the nature of our discussion today, I'm trying to just find a nice space for where I can put this, right? the nature of our discussion today is going to be, each slide is going to have 4 parts, right? The first part of the discussion is the actual paradigm that I would like to challenge us to shift from. And then I'm going to bring in the part about the agent for the change that we're talking about. And then the bright spark ideas that I'm going to share from my own experiences that I'm picking up from my backyard gardening experiences here at home. And then the last part is the actual honey that you see once you've gone through this change process, okay? So we've just done the check-in. I'm happy with what I saw there. All right, are you guys ready for us to get started? Okay, all right. So here's the first question. When preparing this, here are the 2 things that were going on in my mind. The first one was, what are the lessons that I've picked up in this last 140 days of lockdown South Africa? So we've been in lockdown since the 26th of March, and then up to now, it's 140 days. So one of the things that I've been doing, I've converted our backyard as a kind of a laboratory where I'm doing a bit of gardening, but that those gardening exercises that I'm doing there, I'm using it as a laboratory to observe, to study behavior of plants, nature, the soil, the birds, the insects, whatever I can find that's going on there. I look at it from the eye of a cross-pollinator that I am, the facilitator, the author, and also the coach. And I'm going to be sharing those stories with you guys. So in that, I'm hoping to answer 5 of these questions. And let me get straight into those questions. So, but in doing that, I'm trying to imagine a process or thought processes that happen in an innovator's mind or an entrepreneur's mind, especially those who are starting out. So when starting out, one of the things that people tend to ask themselves is, how much seed capital do I need for me to get started? And I find that to be a question that's more about looking out for the ego and so on, just the me stuff. And then so if maybe we were to reframe from that and be more moving from being ego-driven to being eco-driven, the question then would be, what kind of social capital do I need to connect to in order for this business to get going, right? So that would be a reframe of that question. And here is something that has helped me to take a closer look at what that looks like in nature and right here at home in the backyard. So what I've noticed is in the evenings, mostly what happens, there's these birds that come just after sunset, and they get together in one of the trees just at the edge of the garden, and they make a lot of noise. They flock together, they make a lot of noise, and these birds are starlings. So we have our own variety of starlings here in South Africa. They're not naturally African birds, but they've migrated, they're now a part of what we see happening in our bird life here. So these birds make a lot of noise. They very irritating, very scary sometimes. Sometimes even for myself as a human, I look at them like, what's going on here? What's all this excitement about? But what really is happening there is something much closer to what we're trying to investigate. These birds, first of all, during the day, they spend a lot of time eating fruits, and the fruits that they eat carry a lot of seeds. And the seeds, then from their droppings, those seeds get dispersed all over where they move around. And especially under that tree, there's a lot of droppings, and those droppings, I could either use them as part of the manure that I throw into the compost heap that I'm building up, or they end up maybe growing whatever plants that end up showing up in the garden. But there's something else here when we're talking about building social capital. Because these birds are small and are very easy target for whatever predators that are roaming around at night, these birds make all this noise to protect each other. And to protect each other, it's something that they cannot do on their own. So they get together, make all this noise, and the noise scares these predators, and it together it sounds like something very big, something very scary. None of the predators can dare come over to attack any of these birds. So throughout the night they're safe, and two, the noise and all this excitement that's going on keeps them warm because they're rubbing against each other. The aim is just to stick as close to the bird next to it. So each bird's aim is to stay as close to the bird next to it. And right there is a lesson for entrepreneurship. Most of the time, you find people who are going into business for themselves saying it's very lonely at the top. It can never be lonely at the top if you take other people along with you. It can never be lonely at the top if you make sure that you're always staying close to others and you see what kind of social capital you can build together. I don't want to go into details about social capital, but I'm sure you guys can find time to do that. The next point that I want to go to is the question of stuff that I'm learning from the compost heap itself. So the compost heap, most of the stuff that I end up throwing in there is stuff that would have otherwise gone into waste. Most of the foodstuffs that we tend to throw away, nature has a way of regenerating itself through, if for instance, because I'm intentional about the kind of soil that I want to create, and what I've done is not only do I bring these food waste into the compost heap, but I also threw in some worms in there. These worms eat these old peels from whatever we've got going on in the kitchen. The worms eat this and they produce what we call the worm tea. This worm tea then improves the quality of the soil because it repopulates the soil with microbes. And that, as it improves the soil, it sets the scene for any type of planting I may want to do in that soil. So here's the question. From an ego-driven type of mindset, we get something that goes like, what if I'm not really cut out for this and I'm not ready for the challenges ahead, right? Now, if you reframe that, it says, now that I'm getting into business, what must I do to improve my readiness levels? What kind of soil am I going to get myself into? Where am I going to be planted? And is that soil ready for the type of work that I want to do, right? So readiness is not just a process that goes on or a conversation that goes on with you as the innovator, as the originator of the business, but it's also something that you also want to check with the environment that you want to set that business up in. And so readiness involves work with yourself and also with the environment, right? Let's move on. The third point that I want to move on to is, now we've got the soil ready and so on. And I want to talk about wood ash that also has been teaching me some stuff. So the soil is there, but sometimes there's too much acid in the soil, or the soil there's too much alkaline. So we want to look at the pH level in the soil. Now, how do we improve the soil quality? By just using organic materials. Because we really want the roots in the soil to form a very strong network and be able to draw very good nutrients out of the soil, and there's nothing that's toxic that goes into the plants that will grow from that soil. So here's a question. The world of business is cruel and mean. How will I handle all of that, right? So there's this thing of paranoia and always expecting that bad things are going to happen to me and the business world may not receive me the way I expect it to. But if we shift from there and we say, what should we anchor our business in so that we can handle any form of toxicity, right? So being able to handle any form of toxicity looks at not others, but looks within. And it says there's something that I can do, there's something that we can do as a team and improve our levels of our own acidity so that whatever is happening out there, we can handle it. So that you shift from being this person who is angry and is thinking, yeah, it's me against the world, to a person that says, I have a responsibility here and I'm not a victim of anything. I can do something about this and make this work for me. And then end up with the kind of quality soil that will help me to prosper here. All right. And then the fourth question that I want us to look at is something that I learned from the cabbages when I started doing a bit of companion planting. The cabbage on its own would suffer from worms and nematodes that you'd find in the soil. But the minute you start planting marigolds around the cabbage, so you'd have a row of cabbages and maybe a row of marigolds, and mix it up in such a way that the two talk to each other. Now that partnership or that companionship is the same kind of companionship that you need to put together for yourself in your own business as well. Now, here's the thing. How will I protect myself against any potential losses and risks in this business, right? And we shift that into who do we have to go together with or team up with in order for us to thrive? So there's certain companionships or networks that you have to tap into, and you're very intentional about it. You know that your qualities are complementary to each other. So there's people who may be maybe in a totally different industry than you, but you know that if we are connected with such and such businesses or such industries or bring in certain skills into what we do, then we will succeed. Now, as you start whatever that business is, but you're not clear about what could go wrong and therefore how to mitigate such kind of risks, you might find yourself unable to know who else should you partner with. Most of the time, we tend to partner with people that look like us, are in the same industry like us and so on. But sometimes you do need to partner with people who are in a totally different ballgame altogether. Like for instance, the cabbage is a vegetable and the marigold is just a flower. But the two help each other out. And it's very nice for the eyes, I must say. All right, and the last point I want to look at is the question of now the whole thing of cross-pollination. So plants have this internally built or wired in wisdom or some innate abilities that help them to know what to do when. And everything is so precise, it's so clear, and it's so effective. I do write about it in the book. I'll share with you just now before we finish off. Here's something that I picked up from the pumpkin that's growing there. And by the way, sorry, these pictures are not from my gardening. My plants are still younger than this. So the pumpkin also benefits from the cross-pollination that goes in there. So I've made the garden to be a little bit colorful so that I can attract pollinators like some bees, some bugs. You know, there's some new birds that started showing up in the garden now. So I really want an increase in the genetic diversity of the plant population that is already building up there. Now, I'll come back to the question of genetic diversity. How will I get my message across and make sure that it is well received? Now, and we turn that around and say, while we remain anchored and deeply rooted in what we do and who we are, how are we going to look across and know what to bring in and when to bring that in, right? Now, the plants know exactly what to do and when and how much of this, how much of that. And that's what makes them to be so successful at being plants. But with us being humans, we've messed it up so much and we know very little about human relationships. And most of the time, because we're so driven by this me stuff, we tend to lose out on being a part, understanding that our beliefs carry a lot of arrogance. And it's that arrogance that denies us an opportunity to benefit from everything that the universe has to offer. Nature has a lot to offer to us. And when we stop thinking that we are not a part of nature, it's then that we can tap into all these sources of wisdom and knowledge and stuff that can really take us forward as people. And before we close off, I just want to read something from page 26 and page 27 about cross-pollination. just to emphasize this point of genetic diversity, I'll read the part that explains what cross-pollination is. In page 26, it says, this is a beautiful natural process that increases the genetic makeup, the genetic diversity of a plant population by increasing the number of heterozygous individual plants, right? So the more diverse a business, a system, an organization, a network, or whatever collective you find yourself in, the more diverse it is, the better. Because then it increases the chances of that particular collective to have that competitive advantage compared to others. And I believe this process today is one of those of cross-pollination in action. And so yeah, I did speak about this part of plants are governed by an intelligence that gives them the innate abilities to know what to do when, in a well-orchestrated fashion, which to a casual observer will look like magic. It is not magic. It is the understanding of the laws of nature and having the humility to learn them and practice them. That's on page 27. Thank you very much. I think that we've come to the end of our lunch bite. And before we close off, I just want to go to our checkout. I'll stop there for now and let's go to our checkout. Same access code that we use for the check-in. Just 1 second. Yeah. Let's go to that checkout that we used earlier on. Mendy, for those who came in when we had started already, we were on mendy.com and the access code is right there at the top. It's 1526194, right? And for our checkout, I'd like to go to the next question here. I'm trying to move from the screen. Can you go to mendy.com, and then the question is, what are the points that stood out for you? So there's a sliding scale. Just show us which ones, so you can just move the scale around, starting with the one that was the highest for you, and just move the scale around. And so just want to get an idea, what are the main points that stood out for you? Let me get this out of here and then come back to the screen. Right. Are you guys getting there?
I still have the what are you expecting to learn about slide.
Hello? That doesn't seem to be working much.
Yeah, I still have the what are you expecting to learn about slide up.
No. Okay. Let me just get a discussion going on from here and maybe hear from you.
Hey, Musa, I had a question for you.
Yeah.
So as the book's been out for a little bit now, and of course, I was telling everyone when you lost connection there that the book is about, it's a story, and about the lives of two main characters. And I was just kind of curious what you're starting to see emerge as the lessons from the book. And thanks, Craig. And the lessons from the book and what's really starting to stand out. And I'm particularly also interested in some of your perspectives on what you think that amongst all of those different cultures that are in the book, what you think is uniquely African or South African that's being brought forward as contribution in the cross-pollination.
Connection is very bad here. Apologies again. I don't know what's going, it just keeps going on and off. I got a bit of your question. Sorry, Meg, to cut you off a bit there. You were saying what's beginning to emerge. Yeah, I got that bit, yes.
As the key lessons from the book, and what do you think is particularly resonating that is uniquely from Africa or particularly South Africa that you think is being able to contribute to the the overall cross-pollination and set of lessons?
Okay, one of the things that I was noticing so much aware of, but now from the experience of writing this book and then putting it out there and looking at standing out for me, and as something that I really need to take a closer look at is the question of race, cross-racial relationships in South Africa. It's very difficult to tell a story in South Africa or to do any work without the question of race coming up. So, but personally, my intention was when I chose to write the book and make it about two people who come from two different races, who work together, both professionals, and they fall in love. That was my intention, to get people to talk about cross-racial relationships in terms of professional growth, and also for relationships as in to a point where they end up getting married. I wanted to bring that out and say, are we really ready to be progressive, right? There's a lot of people who can talk about it, but when it comes to actually doing it, doing business with people that are not of your race, or doing business in countries that are not necessarily countries or that are receptive to, are we really ready for that? You know, or it's just nice for our conversations when we're having coffee together, but when it comes to action, it's a totally different ball game. So one of the things that for me was not so exciting to see is there's a bit of hypocrisy that goes on. At work, we talk about how great we are. Here in South Africa, we even refer to each other as a rainbow nation. But at home, it's a totally different conversation altogether. When we're at home, you'd find white people saying, oh, those blacks. And then you find black people saying, oh, those whites, you know. But when they're at work, we love each other. It's such an amazing thing. And then that for me is like, I'm glad I'm raising these points. I'd really love to get more into these conversations, even though it's more like a side track. But the main one was about the sharing of the human experience and understanding each other deeper than just the surface stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'd love to have a follow-up conversation on that. I think there's a lot of power in the work that you're doing that actually touches on race, not just touches on race, race is central to things. And of course, you know what's going on in the United States. So I think there's this, the story that you're telling, the analogy of cross-pollination and, you know, really what are we aspiring to, really comes up for me as something that's really resonant and important to get to the next place. And so, and, you know, if there's any nation that knows about race and people that know about race challenges, it's South Africa. So I think there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from your experience.
Yeah. No, thank you. I would love to get into that a bit deeper on a more real, more authentic level. I think the time has come for us now to be real about these things, because we've seen what we failed in, just touching on the surface and not really getting to grips with the real conversations that can move us forward. Yeah.
Well, that would be fun to do, and maybe that can even, you know, weave into what you might end up doing in your next presentation.
Okay. Oh, I thought we froze again.
All right.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for such a great, such a great talk.
I thought I got disconnected a bit there.
So we can jump in on impressions if you all want to as we wrap it up. This was a super great lunch bite, which is part of our program with Entrepreneurship and Innovation. We are launching some executive education programs coming up in the fall. And Art, you're still here. Do you mind sharing for a moment about that?
I don't mind at all. Thanks, Meg. And but anyway, so coming up for this fall, we have our kickoff to a series of things that we're working on. Some really exciting courses that really speak to leading like an entrepreneur. And leading like an entrepreneur really is involved with being able to identify opportunities and be able to bring people and resources together to make change happen. And to do that, part of what we want to do is unleash creativity. So one of our first major offerings is Unleashing Creativity, which we'll be offering in the fall. And that'll be combined with Coaching for Innovation and a variety of other short courses that we have that should put people in a position to be able to lead like entrepreneurs. So pretty exciting stuff.
Well, this was such a great connection, and Musa's actually going to be joining us for a longer session in early October, and we are streaming our Monday night classes live. So we'll send out some information about that talk, and we'll have a much deeper opportunity then. I'd love to encourage you all to check out the book that Musa wrote as well.